I'm trained to look for the red light. And thanks, Sachi. So can you guys all hear me okay? Isn't it funny? Like where I'm sitting, it doesn't sound like it's coming through.
Well, the speakers go out.
But as
This is
long
the
as you
worst
can
thing.
hear. Oops, now it got louder. As long as you can hear, I'm good. Yeah, it's you, I can hear me. Okay, so let's actually just take a moment to center ourselves and arrive. Right? Really just feel yourself in your seat in this sacred space. And the great souls that are here with you, seen and unseen. Feeling the earth beneath your feet, grounding quality that the earth offers us. And the power of divine healing grace that is present with each of us. I'll say the prayer that Yogananda taught us, beginning of which he taught us, and add a few words. You can listen or pray with me if you feel to. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters of self-realization,
Great masters of self-realization.
Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ.
Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, and beloved Paramhansa Yogananda ji, saints of all religions, friend and guide Swami Kriyananda, we humbly bow to you all. Help us to open our hearts to receive thy healing presence. Help us to recognize thy light, illuminating our path. Help us to find divine soul friends to support us in our journey and to be a divine friend to all. Om, peace. Amen. Okay. So as we've done in the past, I want to open up our circle for stories, comments, questions, whatever you feel to share. If you feel to share, the theme tonight is living with loss, the way of the spiritual warrior. So that's what we'll be talking about. I'll be talking about tonight in the lecture part. But it's been such a powerful 4 weeks together. And so if any of you would like to share, I mean, many of you have, and you can share again, but there's no limit. Yeah, Dhananjaya. So you have the mic.
Just 1 minute. I've gotten a lot of feedback from people who are tuned in on Zoom, and they cannot hear the questions. We have to keep the mic extremely close to our mouth and maybe even still repeat enough of the question.
Sure.
No?
There we go.
We're right there, okay. When I came back from the service for my folks, I watched episode 6 from season 3 of The Chosen, which is a show about the life of Christ from the perspective of his followers. When it was over, I noticed that it went for 1 hour and 11 minutes, which is 111. And that made me think of you guys because you mentioned Evan made himself known with 111. And so I thought of you guys and I prayed for you and just wanted to share that.
Wow, thank you, Dhananjaya. Beautiful. Yeah, James. Oh, not you? Okay, Letty.
Last year, maybe it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was dealing with a lot of death around me. I had 4 uncles pass away, or rather 3, and one of those was my godfather. And that was just over a span of a year.
Mm,
And I felt really bad because even with all those passings, the most hurtful was my pet still. But it wasn't so much my pain that I was feeling, but everyone around me. And I didn't know how to support them, or I guess how to, it just seemed really hard. And I feel like as I get older, or as years pass, I'll be surrounded with that even more.
mhm.
And so I'm wondering if you can help guide me on that, just how to not be just so affected by everyone's pain and loss.
Mhm.
And I understand their pain and loss. And on the day that my godfather passed away, which was very unexpected, it was my anniversary, my wedding anniversary. And I called my mom and I said, she texted early in the morning and she said, your godfather's had a heart attack. And so when I called her, I said, it's okay though, right?
Yeah.
She said no, that he had just passed away. And I was angry with Divine Mother.
Mhm, mhm,
And I told her I was.
mhm.
But then the gift that I was given from expressing my anger to Divine Mother, sharing that with her, was that I could feel her sorrow for me even more. That a motherly love of seeing her child in pain.
Yeah.
And I was surprisingly able to move past that anger a little quicker by just sharing that with God.
Yeah.
I also lost my father-in-law in that same year.
Mm.
The 2 fatherly figures in my life. My godfather was like the second father to me. And I guess that's just what I would like to ask is, how can I either help support my loved ones when they're dealing with the passing?
Mhm.
And I specifically think of my dad because he's the only man left of all my aunties and uncles.
Mm.
And I only imagine the pain that he's feeling.
Mhm.
All these men were in his life for since he was he's a teenager and he's 70 now.
Oh, it's beautiful, Letty. Yeah, I don't know why I'm feeling to look at you. Like, are you feeling something to say?
I want to I think one thing that comes to mind for me, besides, I mean, you're saying, how can you support others, but your own pain and sense of loss is palpable. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. It's a lot of loss, and we've said it many times here, no matter what we know or what we feel spiritually, we still can miss the person who's no longer here with us. It's the nature of the human condition, really. So that's one thing. What I have found is that the most comforting thing for people about loss, about big medical diagnoses that are scary, I mean, so many things that are hard for people to absorb, is when we're actually just willing and able, whether you are or not, is something you have to determine, to just be with them wherever they are. And that's not always easy. It's a simple thing to say, but we have to be okay first before we can be with them. But there is something that is so comforting about somebody being willing to let us be in pain and be close to us. I have to laugh because everybody was looking for a box of Kleenex for you when you were almost crying. Just last week, a psychologist said to me that one of the early lessons that they learned, and I hope I don't embarrass anybody in the room, I don't mean to, is that when you're crying and somebody goes to hand you a Kleenex, in essence, they're saying, quit crying, because it interrupts that flow. And it does. I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's one thing to make sure we have Kleenex spread around and it's available, but it's so unusual in this world to have somebody just be willing to sit there with us while we're in whatever pain we're in. So we don't need to say words to fix it, because we often can't. Loss is loss. Getting a diagnosis of a cancer is getting a diagnosis of a cancer. I mean, whatever it is. But when somebody's not afraid of what we're going through, it is very comforting. Does that make sense?
It does.
Will you turn mine up just a little bit? It's just too quiet for me. What's that? On
She
my
has to turn
box?
it up.
Okay. Yeah, I'm listening to Shanti. I'm like, that's how I want to sound. Gives me more peace. So Val, yeah.
So one thing that I found with the loss,
And put it a little closer. Val.
when I had people that were calling me, coming by, I didn't really want them to be there because I didn't want to portray my pain onto them.
Mm,
And they would just sit there and cry with me, and it just made me feel bad that they were in such pain.
yeah.
So I asked people just, the contact is nice, but, let me contact you
Yeah.
when I'm ready, because I
Yeah.
just felt bad that, I really couldn't communicate anything to them.
Yeah.
And even to this day, sitting talking with somebody, I just break down. So, and the male person was sitting there hugging me and crying with me. This is, it's pretty
Thank
much a stranger. So it's so much pain that you have that is projected onto somebody else. And I don't know, I just didn't feel comfortable with that. Somebody says to you, it's okay not to be near them right now.
Yeah.
They're not rejecting you.
Yeah.
I'm not rejecting them.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so important, Val, what you're saying. I mean, both what Shanti just shared was perfect. And what you're saying, a lot of what stands out to me specifically in both of these responses, but I'll start with you, Val, is the discernment of listening to those who lost someone, right? Like to pay attention to, because as Shanti said, we can pass the Kleenex and, I agree. I'm just going to say, I know that. And, sometimes I pass it and sometimes I don't. That's all I can tell you, right? Like I do know that it can interrupt. So it's a good thing to know, to check yourself. Why am I doing this? Right? Is it my discomfort? right? Am I trying to fix something, change something, alter something? Or am I actually feeling guided to do it? So there's no right or wrong, but really listening to others and sometimes asking, would you like me to be here? But is it helpful for you? Would you prefer to be by yourself? You know, it's really important because everyone's different and who knows? You could just think ahead of time what you might think you want and be completely surprised yourself by it. So I really appreciate that. Yeah. Anyone else like to? Yeah, Letty.
I, the daughter to a mother, I'm glad I'm going to support mom. Anything that Master sharing with me.
Say that again, Letty. I couldn't hear you.
That from a daughter to a mother, that I don't even remember what I just said, but
Okay.
To share that pain, to make myself available.
Yeah.
To support in any way that I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And when Shanti was talking about the power of presence, of not saying anything, right? Of just being there, being available. I was reminded of, I told you guys about that retreat I went on with Stephen Levine. And one of the things he talked about was the practice of being present with an open heart in the room, right? And so he just was saying that very often, you know, we have these ideas of what death and dying are. And he said the danger of going to a spiritual workshop or class is we can really get fixed on what it's supposed to look like. And we've heard in many ways already, it looks different all the time. How do we know, right? But we can impose that on others. So we can, and you know, I liked when Shanti was saying to Ronnie, is this okay with you, football? Oh yeah, it's good. Okay, Shanti didn't impose, right? She didn't do, well, I know what I would need and what I would want, which isn't this. You okay with everybody visiting? Oh yeah, I like it. It's good. It's great for me. Okay, so the discernment, but one of the things Stephen said is the power. I mean, sometimes all you can do is be present in a room silently and just pray. Yeah, I love what you shared, Dhananjaya, of, you know, you saw 111 and thought of them and sent a prayer, right? The power of that. So being able to practice a steadiness, a groundedness, an open-heartedness in the presence of difficulty, and trust that it helps. Trust that it's, and sometimes we do that at a distance. It's not the physical presence, because actually that's just making someone uncomfortable and they feel like they have to take care of us, right? So it's a great question, right? How to support others in their loss. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, Michael, did you raise your hand? No. That's okay. Saranya, okay. That's it. Give me the mic.
Talk a little bit about process of dying. You said that it's different for each person. So I'm going to tell.
Saranya, I can't understand even a word. Can you just speak a little louder and more distinctly? Thanks, and I'm sorry. I want to be with you. I couldn't.
This prayer doesn't need to be this way.
Like that. That's better. And just slowly too. It's uncomfortable.
No pressure here.
Yeah, no pressure. What?
I'm sorry. I just couldn't understand you for that moment. I really want to be with you. Yeah.
So, practice it. No.
The process of dying.
Dying. So I'm going to tell 3 or 4 short views on or experiences on it. The first one happened here at Ananda. I'm so sorry that Sharmila is not here today. She knew this person much more than I did. His name was Jason, and he was an Ananda member who lived here in Scottsdale. So the distance when he came to a class that Asha was teaching on something, I don't remember what it was. He came, you know, some of the other people came with him and drove him because he had been on dialysis for a number of years, and he was done with that dialysis, and so he had decided to stop the dialysis. But he was in the process of dying. He was a devotee of the master. I don't know if he was a Priyaman, but he was definitely a devotee. And he said that the dying process was ugly.
And a little slower, just a little slower.
And
Very ugly, not, you know, what you think it's supposed to be after all, you know, the masters will come and they'll good you and they'll be beautiful. But his presence here was so powerful for us. If I remember correctly, he vomited here in the class. You know, that
Oh.
was part of his fun. He, you know, he had a bag with him and he started to vomit and people around him would brought him, you know. It was an ugly process and he was here to tell us it's not, you know.
Wow.
This beautiful thing that you think it's supposed to be, but that was, for us, it was really powerful. And then somebody that gives you permission to whatever it is that's happening, like, and, you know, just go with it. Because here he was. I mean, we stopped for a break or something, and she didn't go back to teaching the class. We just talked. He talked and shared. And it was, you know, I'm talking a long time ago, and it's so powerful. It's really something. So that process is done. I have another friend right now. She's 83, and she, I think 4 years ago, she has had cancer for probably 20 years. And the cancer got to the point where she was asked to go, she wanted to go on hospice. That was 4 years ago. Bought it. She's a university professor. And right now, she is probably going to retire. I talked to her yesterday.
Huh.
Because the cancer is now in her liver, probably in her spleen, and you know her she's really low right at this point. But she's probably going to retire fully, you know. I mean, you know, she was writing grants and grading papers and stuff like that right up until yesterday, I think.
Wow.
But her family, they're not ready.
Yeah.
And so they went on today, you know, they said we're going on today to get a blood transfusion.
Mm.
Part of my question is how can I support her?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when, you know, it's kind of her next step. I think that she's, back I know, she told me a year and a half ago that she was ready.
Mm-hmm.
But part of her is that you can say that, you know, she was careful in the words to be of what she would say because Steph was right around.
Yeah.
She didn't want to strongly say, no, the doctor said, forget it, you know, we're going to go off and get this blood transfusion and hope that that's going to, I don't know. And then the other one is closer to home, is my sister who has, what do they call it now? Cognitive decline to make it sound better.
Uh-huh.
Alzheimer's, but they're never sure if that's what it is.
Uh-huh.
She's been in a rest home for about 7 years, 7 or 8 years, but before that, she wasn't even able to talk. So she's really been dealing with this decline for 10 years, if not more. And she had a problem with drinking, so even before the Alzheimer's or dementia started, she was no longer there.
Mm.
You know, we talk about grieving. My real grief for her was that time when I lost her.
Yeah.
She no longer was.
Yeah.
And I'm hurt. I'm going to start crying. I
Mm-hmm.
don't cry.
Okay.
We're 18 months apart.
Mm.
We used to think we were twins.
Wow.
Because we were so close. But alcohol took her first of all, and now dementia has taken her. But the really sad thing is, it's not taking her.
Right.
I was
Right.
there with her today. She is not there.
Mm.
She grimaces, seems to be in pain. They never give her enough medication. She's been on and off hospice a record number of times,
Mm.
literally 14 times.
Wow.
And they said, whoa, because it's a very slow death and it is not really,
Wow.
not really. And, you know, I talk with my brother-in-law, we visit her, he visits her like every 3 times a week. I visit once a week, but it's really hard. It's really hard. You know, and you think that it's cruel to wish that this was done. Divine Mother, what are we supposed to learn from this? Please
Yeah.
help us all to learn what we need to learn.
Yeah.
We're done. Can we
Yeah.
move on here?
Yeah.
My brother-in-law feels because he says my sister did not believe there was anything else. That's why she's hanging on.
She didn't what?
Doesn't believe there is anything else.
Yeah,
And I don't think that's true, but he said, she said that many times that she doesn't believe this.
yeah, yeah,
To me, she has said, no, incarnation seems like a possible thing.
yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah, very. Saranya, when you visit her, can you share a little bit about what it looks like on your end, what you do, what's the experience?
If my brother-in-law and I are there together, we do something that's not nice at all, probably. We chat. My brother-in-law and I chat.
Okay, you just have conversation, what's going on, yeah,
And then we go out.
okay,
Partly because I felt, especially earlier on, I felt that his health was in real danger because his whole life was surrounded with my sister. And he felt as if he was gonna die. He had no life except in that. And so it's important for us to.
sure, okay,
If he's not there with me, I usually take my iPod and play music and I have a whole list of songs that are my Connie songs. And I play the songs. One in particular was the Hallelujah chorus. She came here to Ananda when her mind was beginning to slip, but was there enough for her. She would join the choir. And remember at the end of the day when wants to come up, she didn't really know it, but she would come up and say that. And I've seen the magic of music with her earlier on when she could talk, that she would not talk. Well, she hadn't been talking, but then she would say a few words after listening to it. So what we do is sit with her and we chat. Mostly we just chat. She doesn't respond in any way. She doesn't recognize people in any way. Most of the time her eyes are closed.
okay,
I say she's grimacing, fighting with me. Sometimes I'll rub her on her head. Like that.
yeah, it's helpful to just have that sense of, and what would you say your experience is in both of those situations? What's happening for you internally?
For me, with the woman in Virginia, we have a very close feeling. We are close and we're not close, So we've been meeting for over a year and a half or 2 years on Zoom.
On Zoom, okay.
Thank you very much. Maybe even longer than that. And I appreciate it and have thanked her for allowing me to take this journey with her. And she is appreciative that we have the time together. We meditate together sometimes. Talk together, chant together.
Wow.
Even though it's difficult on Zoom.
And how about with your sister? What's happening internally for you when you're visiting?
When I'm there, especially if my brother-in-law is not there, sadness, impatience.
Okay,
Wishing things were different from what they are.
yeah,
Missing her.
yeah.
And then, like I say, usually my brother-in-law's not there, I put on some music and then I probably just either rub her back or, massage her. And what's happening internally is not that much because I'm just doing that.
Yeah.
It's when I leave that I.
Yeah.
What can I do about this situation?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing these stories and asking this question. So again, just in this moment, I'm feeling to look to Shanti to see if you're feeling to respond. It's fine if you're not, but.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but I didn't hear, there's not a question, is there?
I guess the question is, and you and I talked before, what can I do?
Okay.
And not so much with the woman who has cancer. Divine Mother has her plan for that. And
I do have a response to that one. Yeah. But I turned it to you. So do you want to?
I'll just finish because I just felt like you were sharing stories, meaningful stories. You know, the moments in life where death is not, it's not pretty. It can be very difficult. For whatever reason, that man chose to come up here and make sure you all knew that. I'm not sure. Really, I don't know what his point was, other than to maybe share his pain. But anyway,
I think he wanted to be in the Ashram class. I think he wanted to be around Ananda.
I see. Oh,
He, Ashram knew
yeah.
him.
But he didn't just come just to, as a statement about death. Oh, he was actually just coming to the class. Yeah. I think that the story with your sister is the most compelling in a way, the most, because it's so close to you. And it just, I don't know that there's anything to do. I mean, you know these teachings, you know, there's nothing any one of us could say to you in a way that you haven't heard about what's happening with the soul. You went through all of Tushti's death and dying, so you watched. She lived for months, a very dear friend of many of ours here. But just really to speak about how hard it is to see people we love do what we think is suffering. And whether they're suffering or not, we don't know. But just, I'm not, it's not like an answer to that. It's just an acknowledging that it's very hard. And we don't know why. We can't understand what's happening. Why is she holding on? And that's an irrelevant question in a way. What difference does it make? What's really mattering now is how hard it is for you to watch this literally over years now. To me, it just feels like that's the end. It's hard, period. I mean, I hate to say it like that. I don't think there's anything, I couldn't think of one thing to say to you to do to make that easier. Watching somebody that you've loved, that you were so close to, first of all, hurting herself the way she was with alcohol, not being able to help her. Now again, not being able to help her, other than by your presence, which I'm sure in ways that are unfathomable is very helpful to her. Your very presence, you could go there. I don't think you don't knit anymore, do you?
I do knit, but I don't knit there.
Yeah, whatever you would do that would be calming to you and centering to you, I think will be helpful to that soul. And again, it's, you know, there's a Catholic term for this that I can't draw up right now about just being present, but there's a phrase about bearing witness. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's so much power to that. And I just, for whatever reason, it's yours and it's come to you, and we have to trust or know, if we can't see it, that we're not changing things externally, but energetically and spiritually we are by being present there. That's where the faith has to come in and open your heart and love her as much as you can, instead of getting angry with her for still being around. Yeah.
What you said about what would be common to me really strikes me, because I haven't thought I've been there. And I'm wondering, you know, when I do play music for maybe I would say people at all times play music that is familiar to them. But I would love to play more Swamiji's music, and I just don't know if that's the appropriate thing to do. I would love to, you know, bring in a harmony and chant.
I would say do it for sure.
I would too. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That was part of why I wanted to know what your internal experience is. So to let it be a spiritual practice and bring light and bring joy and bring peace right? And if any part of her is questioning or fearful about what leaving is going to be, Swami's music, is transformative, and he channeled a spiritual vibration. So her soul may catch that, right? You're bringing it into the space. Yeah.
One time, when she was talking a little bit, but not very much, she was still living at home, my brother-in-law, and they always had a funny, literally funny relationship, at one point I put on Swamiji singing from the group now. So this is, words that are difficult to understand. Her speech was almost gone. And all of a sudden she really came to life and said a full sentence to her husband that was totally teasing.
Right.
A little bit of it.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's it. So absolutely, I would. You're there. So to nourish your spirit, your soul, and is so important. And then you can be sharing that energetically, right? Yeah, yeah. The other thing I'll say about your friend who has cancer, had it for a very long time, it's astonishing, right? That when I hear you say she's going to retire. And the reality that she's facing with family not being ready. It's a hard one. When I was early as a yoga teacher, I'd been teaching for a couple of years. I was invited to come to a cancer center for I will say, incredibly progressive hospital. They just were way ahead of their time, knowing the power of the tools of yoga and meditation. I'll also say, honestly, I resisted. I'd lost already my dad and stepmom and therapist to cancer, and wasn't looking forward to walking back into that setting of a hospital. I felt really intimidated to do it. But one of my practices is that, to always be listening, right? And so I told the director who had asked me if I would do it, the director of education at the cancer center, I recommended another yoga teacher who'd actually gone through cancer, right? And was a survivor. And she said, I'm aware of her. Yeah, I'd like you to do it. And I just heard God in that. I said, okay, God, I'll say yes. And it was an extraordinary experience for me. What Mangala, for those who know Mangala, she's a head of the yoga therapy training at Ananda, said to me some years later, and this is one of the things of yoga therapy, it came out of experiences like this with yoga teachers, where they brought something else besides postures. Also, they were bringing the teaching of yoga. So the reason I'm saying all of this is that in that class, which was absolutely extraordinary, I would have students in the middle of class get up and go have radiation treatment and then come back. And so it was so courageous to me there, and they were hungry for these tools. So one of the sessions that we'd always have a theme or whatever, and then we'd sit in a circle and share. And one of the sessions, the theme was healing. What is healing? What is healing? And so then each person shared on that. And honestly, I will tell you, I felt angels come behind each person as they spoke. I was so blown away by the wisdom pouring through them as they spoke. And one woman, and it was a surprise, but she said, what's healing for me is to have a place like this where I can say I'm dying. Because no one in my family will let me. They won't let me say it. She'd had cancer for 12 years and, obviously many rebounds. She said, I'm not rebounding and no one will listen to me. And actually, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I'm ready. I feel like, yes, it's hard. And I don't want to go, but it's been a hard journey. It's been difficult, painful to do this. And I need a place where I can say the truth and people won't be afraid of it. And that's healing for me. right? And I was also just completely amazed because here again, everyone there except for me had cancer, right? And I just thought, what's that like for others to hear? Everyone was so supportive and okay with it. Yes, we will support you in dying. We will support you in dying. And that comes to mind when you speak of your friend. I mean, you could be the one person who's okay with it. And doesn't mean you're not going to miss her or whatever that means for you, right? But wow, I saw the meaning of that. I learned a lot about that. So that really comes to mind to me of back to the idea of bringing your heart and I will add your own spiritual practice. So that's the one other thing I would add. When we're ministering, it's really important that we give time and attention to what ministers to us. So we stay uplifted in our consciousness, right? And we stay connected because it's not easy to minister in these situations. It's a blessing, profound gift and blessing, but it's not easy. We're human. So that's what comes to me to share. Yeah. Welcome. Anyone else like to? Yeah, Dhananjaya.
I have a comment about what you said. When Mom passed, they were she got incredibly agitated. So I put on Swami Kriyananda music. You can't get home, and within seconds, you calm down. And since you have bring harmony to your system, I encourage you that. And harmony in person, you sing when you better than the recording. Get away with it. Do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Dhananjaya.
You know, does anybody remember? I'm blocking on the name of her right now. Somebody's going to help me out here. There's a woman who was a neuroscientist, very highly regarded from Harvard, I believe, neuroscientist. And one morning she woke up at a stroke of insight. It's called stroke of insight. Jill Bolton Taylor, yeah, stroke of insight. But the reason it's coming to mind right now, it is a phenomenal, you don't have to read the book, just watch the TED Talk. If you want to just look up a TED Talk on stroke of insight, I think it's better than reading the book because she's demonstrating the two experiences that she was having where she woke up and all of a sudden she realized that her body was not obeying her command. And it took a while, I don't want to tell the whole story, for her to realize that she was having a stroke. She was a relatively young woman. And she describes so beautifully moving from that place of logic, rational, you are in trouble, you have to get help, but she couldn't make herself dial the numbers, to this place when she would be standing, she would go, and then I was in this beautiful, so expansive. She was like this, describing literally, I mean, what we would call experiences of samadhi. She was totally out of her body and loving it. The reason I'm bringing it up right now, besides saying watch it, it was remarkable, is because when the human consciousness or mind, the human mind changes, like your sister's is or other people's do, things influence them that could not, their mind would have kept it out before. Now the mind is not there, and they're just being moved and influenced and uplifted beyond their own imagination of expectancy. I was looking at a line up there, but the lights aren't on. But many of us in this room know that beautiful line from the poem Samadhi. So I just wanted to share it because you should not be inhibited the way you might have been when your sister was sane and in her mind and could argue with you and say, I don't like that. Because people don't know, then suddenly they're affected by a vibration. So I've told many of you, Ganesh made me this little, I don't know, it's just a loop of it. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, it's a little machine. It's this big. And he put a little tiny card in there that is Swami Kriyananda chanting Om. And I could just let it play for the rest of my life. It just keeps looping and looping and looping. And I always have it on. It's always in the background now in my home. And so many people walk in, people who would never listen to Swami Kriyananda chanting Om, never. But they say, wow, what is it in here? You know, it's like they're just taken by the vibration. I know I'm not saying anything to you don't know, except when it's your sister who's weighing 82 pounds and who won't leave her body, we forget. But it could just be that very, just changing the vibration. And now it will affect her in ways that it couldn't when the logical mind is there saying, I don't like that music. I don't like this. I don't agree with that. But it's not where she is anymore. So I'm just affirming what's been said, but that story came to me, and such a beautiful story of that woman having the stroke. You know? And then she's trying to convince her colleagues, you can't believe what really is the truth. And they're all saying, yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I love it. Anyone else want to share? Yeah. Thanks.
It's not really a question, it's more of a story.
Okay.
Back in the summer of 2006, I was very big. It's downstairs in the Victorian house, sitting there, cooking some grilled chicken. It was a very hot day. Sure, it was going around in the left. I got an email, and it was from my uncle. And basically said that he would speak.
He would not speak.
He wanted to speak.
Oh, he wanted to speak with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm all like, I didn't know because he was an uncle that was on my father's side. And so I was pretty close to passing him down. And I messaged with him, all like, messaged him back, asking him why. I was like, I need to talk to you. And basically, we had a few conversations with the internet, and I was, as often possible, I reached out to my mom, hey, do you know who this person is? You know, and she's like, yeah, I'm sure my father's brother. Oh, okay. So then I went and I talked to him, and he told me my dad. And I wasn't really close with my dad. He told me he passed about 3 months from the time in which we had that conversation. It was tough because when he told me that, then I had a good time. And my mom was in California at that time. She actually was back to Georgia. She was in Columbus, Georgia. And it was weird because first, that was the hardest thing. When you have to hear them on the crew. Telling information. For person, it's just, it's hard to really compute that as a young man. I was probably in my mid-20s at that moment. And, it was tough for me. I remember I thought I was okay with it, but then I started having cries. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact is it's like when my mind wasn't matching my emotions, that's when it happened. It's kind of like I could take the littlest thing and all of a sudden, all of a sudden just comes out. It's just so staring. I remember I was driving Santa Cruz, I started having a crazy over the car at night. I get to the beach and I was, I was screaming, and it was the perfect one because at least there were waves, no one else could hear it, and it was just, I felt like I was cheated at that time, and I was pissed. I was really pissed. And I was really pissed because he never told me he never told me how. I was so vivid. I was just. It was the moment of my life. To deal with that and the why questions and the what ifs and what could have been, and how can I think about to even the people around me, any of that stuff. It's just I felt cheated. Well, I guess over time, you become a little bit more mature about it, whatever situation, whatever. He chose to go out his way. And, I had to deal with it. I had to somehow find my peace within his past. At first start off that people I had saying people choose the path of least resistance. They just don't want to tell the person because they feel the burden to, on me and not me wanting to see him in that condition or whatever. Something I have to live with for a long time. But then I guess over time, begin to learn that it was his, he chose to live it that way. And, I have to come to terms that if that's the way he wanted to go, I have to be happy with it and find some sense of fulfillment. In my conversation with my mom about his, the type of person he is, I never got that chance to really experience that maybe about times in my life. Most of them very kind of acquaintances. One time I was a trip to Amsterdam, one time I was a trip to Pier 39, so I found my sense of well-being just for the fact that you can't turn back. You just gotta keep moving, continue on. There's some form of legacy, whatever you left behind, I carry on some new genetic traits, that's pretty much it. It's it was tough back then. I think now in my life though, it's just more of I'm just getting to an understanding that sometimes certain things in life that you'll never be able to have a full conclusion. Is that you?
Yeah, thank you, James. I'm feeling to transition into the talk unless someone else was going to speak. No, okay. So the theme, as I was saying, is living with loss. And there are different kinds of loss, which Saranya, you were talking about when someone's gone before they're gone, right? And this journey of how to, so the way of the spiritual warrior, right? The idea with that, and I pulled out our Art and Science of Raja Yoga book, which I highly recommend if you don't have this book. It's and the course is starting tomorrow, right? So there's a chapter in here called Life is a Battlefield. And Swami Kriyananda, who wrote it, the direct disciple of Yogananda, who founded Ananda, talks about the soul's journey and this idea that there's a misnomer about peace, right? That oftentimes there's a feeling that if I could just get everything arranged right, then I would feel peaceful, right? And what he says, and he starts the chapter talking about, that many people have this image of retirement and a little cottage by the sea and just sounds idyllic and perfect. But soon enough, you have a picnic and there's ants in the salad. And he just talks about like, we can't do it on the material realm. No matter how perfectly we set things up, we cannot control this material realm. But more than that, even if we could, what he talks about is that it's not a victory for us to, that's not freedom. That kind of peace that comes from the outer world being what I'd like it to be is not actually tapping into soul power. It's not living in this deeper identity of who we are, that we have the capacity to walk through life connected to our divine self, our divine soul. And when we are living in that reality, we relate to everything with the qualities of God. So there's 8 aspects that Yogananda talks about. God's not limited to these 8 aspects, but there's 8 ways in which we can experience God. I always have to count them when I say them, so I remember them all. But wisdom, light, love, peace, calmness, joy. I love it. Health, sound, like the vibration of Om, Shanti was talking about. And what's the other one? Power, divine power. So, actually, it's the challenges in life that strengthen us, that help us. This beautiful quote that Nathan found for Devon's memorial, and they shared with us. And I have just felt, and I've told you guys from the beginning, that Devon, I just see him as a spiritual teacher in your life. And that's this quote that Nathan had found, that angels don't stay with us long, right? They come to show us, right? To teach us and how to be here. I don't know the quote exactly, and then how to leave. So, it's beautiful, but not easy, right? So these quotes, these teachings, on one level, they're deeply consoling. On another level, but not easy to accept. I don't want it to be true, right? I was watching I don't know if I'd call it a documentary. It's actually Asha, one of our spiritual directors, had sent out, so some of you may have seen this, a YouTube of Ram Dass, if any of you know Ram Dass, an American who had a spiritual awakening, right? And so the theme of the talk is how to keep our hearts open in hell, right? And then he talks about, well, what does that look like? And ultimately, what he's saying in the talk is there's a way in which we can experience the one reality behind duality, behind difference, behind that which seems separate. So things going well, things being hard. And he said, if we live in our human reality, the suffering of the world is unbearable. We can't do it. We just can't do it. If we live in the divine reality, the risk is we can be too impersonal and relate. In yoga teaching, it talks about detachment. And one of the things that can happen, which isn't actually true detachment, is becoming aloof. We're removed, we're not really in life, not really part of it. So we can seem spiritually advanced. That's not spiritual advancement, to not really be engaging in life and in the world. How to keep the heart open, how to be present. Asha has talked about in her early years with Swami Kriyananda, she misunderstood him because he had a very open heart. And so she interpreted that as being detached he's not really feeling life, not really experiencing life. And then she came to understand, which was hard for her to understand. She actually wanted to reject it because then that meant she had to learn how to do this. But he was deeply sensitive and felt everything, right? But still managed to have his heart open, right? There's a story that Kirtani, one of our ministers and senior ministers and teachers of Ananda and Assisi, told about Swami Kriyananda right shortly before he passed. He had many physical challenges, many illnesses, and has often been said, and Asha asked him one time, and she got the answer from him, but that he took on the karma of many people, and which saints can do. And he took on the karma of projects, right? So it would manifest in his body physically. Right? But one day Kirtani was with him, and he was, very physically in a moment of great physical challenge. And her heart sunk. And she's just like, oh, Swamiji, why does Divine Mother? And she started to say, and he stopped her immediately and very strongly said, do not say that. He knew where she was going, which is, why does Divine Mother let this happen to you? Your whole life is dedicated to serving God, right? I mean, you couldn't be purer, you couldn't be better, right? And he stopped her very strongly and said, what Divine Mother sends, I take. And she was like, okay, sir, right? And then she shared with all of us, we were then visiting, and she was talking about how hard it was for her, but he was protecting her consciousness, which is what she was saying to us. He didn't want her to say that for her. Do not go there. Do not go there in your consciousness. Do not allow yourself to entertain the thought that this is wrong somehow. Well, my goodness, right? I mean, I will just say, as a human being, it's easy to entertain that thought. Why, right? And that's what I said in the first class, the difference between in consciousness and intonation between why is this happening, which is fighting it, being upset about it. I don't like it. I don't see the purpose of it. And why is this happening, right? Why is my sister still here? What is going on, right? Why did my loved one leave so early? Why, I mean, these whys that I think Shanti was saying a moment ago can't be answered, certainly not on the mental plane. And I loved the story Shanti shared that Devi has shared so many times. You can't get there from here. Like, that answer will not come that way. But what I've learned over time is that there are moments of illumination that do come in superconscious practice, or the practice of meditation. All the yoga tools and practices are helping us to have conscious contact, inner communion with our own divine nature. And there, even if I don't have answers to my questions, I can touch the qualities of God, which give me a way to walk with them, to walk with a reality, to walk with sacred mystery. There's one of my favorite quotes that in here that Swami talks about is that, let's see if I did put little Post-its to see if I could find them easily. We'll see if I can find it easily. And if I can, I'll share it. Yeah. So he's talking about the spiritual journey and the path of progress. He said, the path of progress must be seen as an overcoming. No man ever slid downhill into heaven. The path has been described rather as an ascent up a mountain, one which may be conquered only after many hardships. It is no mark of spirituality never to be tempted, never to be disappointed, never to fail. These are the marks usually of people who've chosen anthills, not mountains to climb. But the mark of spiritual growth is that for every setback, there is an increased determination to succeed, and that for every obstacle, there is an increasing surge of energy until at last the energy generated suffices to demolish the opposition and allows one to sail forward on the upward journey. A saint, Yogananda ji used to say, is a sinner who never gave up. And this is from the Life is a Battlefield section of Raja Yoga. So this idea that, and what made me think of Ram Dass's talk is he said, he was talking about ministering to people, death and dying, right? And he said a young man had called him who was in law school and just got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And suddenly his lifespan very, very short. And Ram Dass said he had two experiences with him. One was the human heartbreak of difficulty this young man was facing, where all his plans went out the window. Everything he thought his life was going to be was gone, right? That's a real experience. He also said on a higher level, he could feel the power of soul, right? And this is part of Ram Dass's own journey of awakening, where he could live in these two realities at once. And he understood that this soul of this young man was being given a new curriculum. New curriculum. So he's in law school. He had his plan. This is what I'm doing. Well, new curriculum now. Right. And very powerful to me, because that's the teachings of yoga that have helped me so much in my journey, is to recognize life as a school. Right? The soul is awakening. Every experience is an opportunity for our souls. Every one, that's the teaching of yoga. So how do we do it? Or what's being asked? What's being offered? And to be authentic about it, right? So that's why I was saying to Saranya, I encourage you to get support. Because, okay, the curriculum has changed. Who are my teachers? Who are my helpers? Who are my soul friends? Anybody done this one before? Right? Like, ask the question. Anyone done it? How'd they do it? How'd you get through it? Right? I remember one time, I don't remember, which is always interesting to me. I do not remember the struggle. It was big enough that I went to God and prayed earnestly, can you please remove this from my life? Could you please take this away? And I heard an answer, which can happen, which surprised me, right? In my heart, I didn't hear the words, but I did hear a message that felt like God. And what I heard and what I felt is no. But I can give you the grace to move through it. Right? And honestly, I can't remember if it was to endure it, which I don't like that as much, but I think it was to endure it. But I remember feeling like, okay, I asked. There's no right to ask, right? I asked, I just had to. It was such a hard obstacle, whatever it was. And no, I can't remove it. Can't change it. But I can give you the grace. And really, what I've learned over time is, well, that's what I really want. I mean, the reason I want it removed is I want to experience grace. I want to feel freedom. I want to feel peace. I want to feel light. Of course I do. Of course we all do, right? Asha, again, she comes to mind in this moment. She's not the only one who said this, but anyways, she's coming to mind, where she said, part of the longing that we experience is because we remember peace. We remember divine love. We remember it. We remember harmony. We remember freedom. So the part of us that's like, this is wrong, right? It's that we're faced with the conflict of missing peace, missing light, missing freedom. And it's understandable, right? Missing love, right? The soul journey, it can, on a mental level, be very confusing. And what I have found is the more that I practice all the tools and practices of yoga, I get closer and closer to the inner experience of God. And then spending time with other people who are doing the same thing, that lifts my consciousness. That helps me, right? To say, okay, I can't make sense of what's going on. Almost never. And I would say, if I can, I don't trust it. I don't trust it because what do I know? Like, maybe that's why. It's just the ego, the mind loves to, figure things out and say, oh, this is probably why it happened. Maybe. Sometimes I will say I've had insight. That's different. I've had an insight about why something's happening. I have, or teachers have had it for me. And it resonates. It feels right. Feels like, yeah, that actually feels right. But I also know that, the infinite reality of God is such that, well, that might be one reason why. There could be a lot of reasons why. And maybe I'll get that, like it does give a sense of solace when I have that. I'll speak about myself. When I have that, it gives a sense of solace because it just helps me, it helps strengthen my faith that it's not random and meaningless, which is the greatest sense of suffering, right? Is a feeling that life is random and meaningless and things that are happening are just, some roll of the dice. There's no value in it. That's not the teaching of yoga. It's not the teaching of many spiritual paths. Right? One of the things Yogananda said that resonated and still resonates for me is truth is universal. All true spiritual paths, they'll have differences in the way they present it, but you'll see the truth in it. You'll hear it, you'll feel it, you'll resonate with it. We were talking last time about Darwin was asking, about mediums. Are they real, right? Yeah, they are. And Robin was sharing. Yeah, she is one. And the idea of discernment, right? The importance of be discerning, that we do recognize, the soul recognizes truth. It'll recognize the truth of a teaching and the truth of a teacher. Doesn't mean we're always ready for it. Ego might fight it, right? But still inside, there is a recognition of it. Yogananda said that about the soul, that for each one of us committed to a spiritual life, all souls celebrate that. Now, that doesn't mean everyone in your life is on board with what you're doing spiritually. They might not be. But what he said is on a soul level, they rejoice in the decision, the choice to respond spiritually. I was thinking of when Shanti asked permission of Padmini to say, can I please share with you some insights I've had about your journey and how it might help in terms of where you are, right? And Padmini graciously said yes. So we could all benefit because it's a teaching we all need. We all need that teaching of choosing, right? There's a choice, a decision point of saying, especially when it comes to time to let go, time to allow the new relationship that's being offered us to happen, right? To actually allow it to happen. And when I was thinking of this theme of living with loss, the first thing that came to me is the difference between existing and living, right? And so, boy, I think most of us can appreciate that experience, that quality. One is not vibrant. Yeah. Please say something, Padmini, so if we can find the mic. Yeah. Very close, very close.
I wanted to thank Shanti especially, and also this I no longer angry at every frustrating thing that happened. I was gonna get gas at the gas station, and I was just driving in, and it was all taped off, and you couldn't get gas there. And even, how busy San Antonio Road is, at the back up and get out. And I just laughed.
Wow.
Surprised me. I mean, it shocked myself. I am laughing. And before I would be really, really angry.
Yeah.
And people have said I've changed.
Wow.
I've changed a lot. And I'm like a different person. All the things you said. And then we had a singer here on Saturday who sang some very beautiful songs. And one was a spiritual, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. And one of the lines is in it that the angels.
Yeah.
If you get there before I do.
Yeah.
No, some angels lifting you anyway.
Yeah.
course, I'm a cheery mess. It's always been. But anyway, I could visualize my son's soul surrounded by these bright lights ascending. And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
wow, he's wherever he's.
Yeah. Extraordinary, Padmini. Thank you so much for sharing that and letting.
I don't life changing, shattering, everything. Or one time I had a friend, Dunbar, I was complaining about some wine, and to me, and he said, "Why not?"
Uh-huh.
And oh yeah, he's right.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So anyway, that's my little concluding remarks.
Yeah. It's so powerful. It's so beautiful. And I want to say, each of us in our own time of journeying, because, that what comes to mind, one of our practices, many of you know this, if not all of you, in yoga is affirmation, right? So we affirm. And we affirm as a way of stating a teaching, a principle, a truth, so we can line up with it. And sometimes, we're saying it and we feel miles away from it, right? But we keep practicing until we're able to align with it. So what I want to acknowledge is that with death and dying, is that especially when it's new, is the shock to the system that happens, right? And it's real, it's very real. And how long that shock is, how long we need to absorb it and integrate it. When you were saying, James, about your experience, I could really hear that shock. And then also all the feelings that are accompanied with that shock and the time it takes. And it's a time that can't be determined. We can't know it. But the more that we stay, it's been my experience in classes like this and situations like Padmini was talking about, the concert, the sing-along, those things that will uplift our consciousness, it will help us to integrate the experiences we're having, and it will help us choose life. I think that's one of the hardest things after death. It's certainly true for me. I know when my dad died, everything I cared about, I didn't care about anymore. Who cares? I thought, who cares? Yeah. All I could think of is he won't be there. Well, he won't be there. So why do I want to do that? Right? And that did not shift overnight. It didn't shift overnight. And the truth is, my life never went back to what it was, right? It didn't. I know that when he died, I felt like I was transported into a land where I didn't recognize any of the signposts, right? It kind of looked familiar in some ways, but I didn't recognize anything. And it's hard, right, to walk that land that's very familiar to me now. So very familiar now. Now, as Shanti had said when she invited me to join her with the class, it's important to have had experience with death and dying to do the class, right? And it's unique, right? And the more experience you have, it's a seasoned, right? There's a seasoning of that comes from the experience. And now it's a terrain that I haven't mastered. So I go back to that first class or that first experience. Would you come to the Cancer Center and teach? It helped me. It healed me a lot to go there, to face the discomfort. I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to be reminded, right? For all the healing that hadn't yet happened, I didn't want to walk into that. But the grace of sharing yoga and meditation transformed me. And so I want to talk a little bit about seva. service, being present to others, ministry, right? It's like you can have this experience of giving to another. Yogananda said the channel is blessed by that which flows through it. So there are lots of opportunities in Ananda, which is not the only place, but I'll just mention it, to serve, right? To be of service. And sometimes, well, there's projects and things you can do that don't require conversation. So if you don't feel like talking, right, but you just want to be in some good energy and you feel like you want to be around others, that'll help you. It can really, really, really help you. It's been my experience that back what we were saying earlier about vibration, that's the power of vibration. It's much bigger than words. I learned that. I continue to learn it, but in my yoga teacher training, that was the primary message. They said that it's important to learn the wording, guiding others in postures. It's important to learn these things, but what you're really doing is sharing vibration. And that is something we feel when we're together in an uplifted environment, and it can just really help. So the shock, right? I remember, and I forget who was saying this, but someone today was sharing, and it reminded me of, I remember, it might have been Val when you were speaking about how difficult it is to have people come, right? And this is different than that, but somehow it reminded me of it. I remember the day of the funeral for my dad. I had the strangest experience, but I don't think it's that strange. I bet a lot of people have it, which is I suddenly, in my mind, very consciously thought, I don't know why they're having that. I don't know why they're having that service. Denial. I don't know why they're having that service. And another part of me was like, well, you do know why, right? Right. You do know why. I mean, I did. I was living alone in the house then with 2 dogs and a cat. And, but I remember thinking, oh, that's interesting. But very strongly, I had that feeling. I don't know why they're doing that. And the part of me that did not want to walk through that experience was just there, right? I could just feel it. Yeah, I could just feel it. So I said earlier about, I think it was in our opening prayer, praying for the people, the soul friends, the divine friends who can show up and help you. Right. And so, and I know in our first class, I talked about, because again, it's been my experience, there's an extra portion of grace that comes for those who are leaving and for those who, I will just say it this way, are left behind, who have a new curriculum. They're trying to sort out. And the grace, it's been my experience is here. It's here to help you, to help us. And sometime through the teacher who is deeply preparing for the class, inspired, and can share something that shifts everything. There it goes. It shifts everything. You can't imagine it. Wow. It can happen just like that. So one of the things we wanted to end tonight with, we've talked about the astral ascension ceremony, and I've made copies for everyone. And Shanti and I just thought it'd be really nice that to read it together so that you have it as a tool, right? And the intention of the ceremony, as we've said before, is to bless the soul on their journey, right? And there's no length of time that this is relevant all the time. So it could be, long time ago it happened, right? When Kevin was sharing about her mom, you can still say it for her, for that soul. Right? It's always a good idea to send blessings, and it helps us to say them and to practice them. So I'm going to hand those out. And maybe Dhananjaya, would you help me? There you are, right there. Because I'm mic'd, it's harder for me to actually. Would you help me hand these out? Thank you. I wasn't being clear of what I was asking. Let me give one to Shanti, one for me. And here's the others. So what I'll do is you'll see, I'll just start talking about what it is as they're being handed out. So it says here at the top, this is part of Ananda's, whoops, okay, good. The astral ascension ceremony is part of Ananda's funeral service, and it's something that can be read personally when someone you know has died. The beginning of it is "Dear Friend," and when we're leading the ceremony, we say the person's name. So you can imagine a name, right? And if there's several people that are in your heart and mind that you want to send blessings to, you could say for yourself, "Dear friends," right? And you have all of them in mind. This includes pets. So that was talked about, right? It includes pets. So all the souls. So I'll read those words. And then at the end, towards the end, there is a, you'll see at the bottom, towards the bottom of the second page, it says, "Minister reads, 'Thou and I are one,' from Whispers from Eternity." And what we do in the ceremony is I'll read the word and you repeat it, right? So we do it together. It's a joint communal practice of affirmation. And what we're affirming is the oneness behind duality, right? And again, it helps our souls to practice this. So any questions before we practice? No? Okay, feels clear. So, yes. Let's get the mic, so wherever that is, Padme, we'll pass it. Thank you.
And you said that it can be done even after many years.
Yes, absolutely.
But if you have to do for multiple people,
Uh-huh.
do you do it individually or how does that?
Yes, so usually individually you're doing it. Tonight, though, I'm inviting you to hold any soul that has passed that you'd like to send blessing to, because they'll receive it. Right? They'll receive it. Similar, just to say, when we offer healing prayers, divine healing prayers, Yogananda taught us techniques for that. You can pray for many people at once. So similar to that. But yes, thank you for the question. Normally one at a time, we do that. Okay, so any other questions? No. Dear friend, you who have gone before us have entered a realm which our souls remember, a place of freedom, light, and laughter. Take with you on your journey our blessings and our love. We shall miss you. Our desire is not to hold you back, but only to tell you, friend, we are yours. Our love and support are ever yours, and our prayers for your highest happiness. We shall meet again. Once more, we shall laugh together, rejoice together, and share in the joy of seeking him. Claim your soul's freedom. Bless all who ever harmed you or ever wished you harm. Give them your love and your prayer for their freedom in God. Friend, cast from your heart all outward attachments. Realize that earthly goals, however shining, are but dreams. God is the only reality. Burn your earthly desires in the fire of wisdom. Burn earthly limitations in the blaze of inner freedom. Burn earthly disappointments in the flames of spreading peace. Burn earthly joys in the bonfire of divine bliss. See your physical form as a discarded garment. Clothed you now are in garments of radiant light. O free soul, see your past actions as scenes in a vast unfolding tapestry. Feast not your gaze wistfully on episodes already finished, but look ahead. New adventures await you, fresh, joyous victories as you advance toward perfect freedom. And what of us, friend, who love you and would be remembered by you. Behold us as threads of light in the tapestry of your life, threads which through the magnet of soul friendship will appear ever and again, woven with increasing beauty as our hearts expand together in God's love. Divine Mother, receive this thy child. Purify him or her in thy perfect light and love. Grant him or her eternal freedom in thee. Om. Amen. And now we'll read together. I'll say the sentence and then you repeat it from Yogananda's Whispers from Eternity. Yeah. Thanks, Shanti. So I'll read the sentence. She's helping me. She's correcting me. And what we do is together we say we are one. So you don't repeat the sentence. Sorry. I'll say the sentence and then together we say we are one. Thy cosmic life and I are one. We are one. Thou art the ocean and I am the wave. We are one. Thou art the flame, and I am the spark. We are one. Thou art the flower, and I am the fragrance. We are one. Thou art the Father, and I am thy child. We are one. Thou art the beloved, and I am the lover. We are one. Thou art the lover, and I am the beloved. We are one. Thou art the song, and I am the music. We are one. Thou art the spirit, and I am all nature. We are one. Thou art my friend, and I am thy friend. We are one. Thou art the master, and I am thy servant. We are one. Thou art my mother, and I am thy son. We are one. Thou art my master, and I am thy disciple. We are one. Thou art the ocean, and I am the drop. We are one. Thou art all laughter. I am a smile. We are one. Thou art the light, and I am the atom. We are one. Thou art consciousness. I am the thought. We are one. Thou art eternal power, and I am strength. We are one. Thy peace and I are one. Thy joy and I are one. Thy wisdom and I are one. Thy love and I are one. That is why thou and I are one. Thou and I were one, and thou and I will be one evermore. So let's just sit for a moment. And feel yourself sending love and sending light and offering peace for your loved ones. Welcoming light, love, and peace in return. Just a few moments now of silence. As we close now tonight, let's each of us send out the energy of light and peace and love. Feel yourself as a divine channel, blessing all the souls that are here on this journey, all the souls that have transitioned, that each of us is holding as dear, that we might all receive this blessing of grace and feel supported in it. We'll rub our hands together. We'll raise our hands and chant Om 3 times. So you can just have your hands raised if you don't want to chant Om. Or if you do feel to join in this, you can still send energy without the sound. Peace. Amen. Okay, great souls. Thank you for coming. Those online, blessing to be with you all. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to say just before the evening ends that this Saturday morning, we have something that we do every 3 months, which is just a question and answer period. People come to the temple if you choose to, which of course is always the best, but it is live streamed, so you can go to the website. And, it takes about 3 minutes to register on the live stream site. Only if you want to be able to send comments or ask questions, you could just go to our main site and hit live stream and see everything. So it's this Saturday. We meditate from 7 to 9, and then we have questions and answers from 9 to 11. I'm saying it. There, of course, will be other people attending who are not here, but I imagine that something like this often raises questions and questions that didn't get answered tonight. So feel free to join us live here or join us online. For some reason, those Q&As they're always very uplifted. I'll just say that. They're very rich. So if you care to join us, please do. I'd also like to just put out the thought that this came to me. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, and I haven't fully discussed it with Vivekadevi, but this has been a very rich time, actually, for many of us. And I don't think we've exhausted all of that we could talk about. So I have the thought to maybe do a once a month, I don't know what to call this. It's gathering group, like its own sort of sharing or question and answer thing. I'm saying it because I think there would be some value in continuing it. And if we did, we would do it on a Tuesday night, just given the schedule of them. There's a lot of classes now, the beginning of the new year, that will be offered. But once a month on a Tuesday. If we do that, we have all of your email addresses, and we'll email you and say, I assume everybody in the room has registered for the class. And assuming that you did, then we have your contact information, and we'll send that out. I'm just interested to see, as trying to sit with this, how many people think that even on occasion, you might be interested in coming to a once a month ongoing discussion about this topic. Okay, great. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what's trying to happen, as we say. So, all right, everyone, thank you so much. It's been very rich, and the richness really has to do with people's willingness to share those most personal, challenging or joyful moments of our lives in a group like this. So very grateful to all of you. Thank you so much.